This is part 3 of the no pattern needed corset that I've been making live with you guys. So today we're going to be working on the bust cups. I have my pieces that I cut out along with the 1/2 inch boning or the 12mm boning. I did have to use some series, so I cut out the pieces for the series that I'm using. And this will act as the interfacing to cause some stiffness for the bust cups. Now you do want to always mark your notches to make sure that you're, pairing it up on the right sides. I did use batting for the padding inside of the bust cups. You could also use like any type of foam, but I used this one because I needed to sew it up. So now we're going to go ahead and trace out these pieces. Now we're not going to cut it out the size that it is. You want to cut it out about almost like a 1/2 inch or even like a 1/4 inch smaller, because you're going to overlap it and just do a top stitch over it. So we're going to turn the setting to the zigzag, and don't do like me and try to kiss it. It should be paired over it, like just a little bit. So you can see here is the overlapping just a little bit, and you're going to do that top stitch. So then we're going to go ahead and do a base stitch all around each panel so that our materials is not shifting all over the place, because you want it to be nice and smooth. Remember to cut your threads. Always check and make sure that the notches are matching up with each other, because trust and believe, it doesn't matter how good you are, there's times where you're going to be sewing it backwards, and you just to avoid that, just make sure that you're sewing it properly with the right notches. Honestly, from this part, it looked good by itself, but this was not the look that we were going for. So you want to make sure that your seam allowance is pressed open so that it's nice and smooth. You could do it one way, one-sided or whatever, but I say do it open just for the smoothness of it. Always check your work, y'all, while y'all working, okay? So it looks good so far. We did it to the next cup. Now I wanted to make sure that the batting actually fit in there, and it looks pretty good so far. I did go ahead and cut out another piece of interfacing, so this will act as my layer of construction for all the boning that's going on there, because I didn't want any harsh lines on the outside of this bust cup. So as y'all can see, I did trace out the same pattern. I sewed it up, pressed it out, and now I'm about to go ahead and chalk it out so that I can form the caging inside by using the caging method. And if you don't know what the caging method is, it's literally just stacking up a bunch of pieces of boning to create that structural look that you need. And so y'all can see I started chalking it up. Now, honestly, you can literally just follow the lines. You can create your own lines. If you know that it has like a point, you might want to go a little higher on the point just to create that structure. So I went ahead with these lines, started adding my boning. Now you can just sew down the middle, but for more security, you might want to sew on each side of that boning. You don't necessarily need to cover the ends on this one, but of course it doesn't hurt to. I didn't, but it doesn't hurt. And the structure is looking real good and sturdy, y'all. So I went ahead and just pressed it out. You don't got to go too crazy with it because it's already curved, but according to how I curved it with all that boning. And so we're going to go ahead and add it all together. Just sew around the perimeter like we did everything else. I also want to mention that you want to leave enough space for the seam allowance on the boning part. Next, we're going to go ahead and trim around all that excess. You could wait to do it at the end, but I like to work in a clean environment. So I went ahead and trimmed around, and it's looking really good, y'all. I did add another layer of batting. This time I did not follow the pattern. I just filled it in just so that layer of construction is not irritating my client. Next, you want to go ahead and place the lining to the front of the bust cup, because we're going to sandwich it in to create a clean finish on that neckline. Sorry that this one is not the best angle for showing y'all what I was doing, but I did correct it at the end so that y'all could see. And so here we have that clean finish. Of course, y'all already know, cut your threads. We're going to sew up that corner. And then we're going to go trim and flip it inside out. Cutting the corners and allowing like that tension to release from these garments is very important because you do not want your garment to look so like beat up and bruised because it has all this tension in the seams. So make sure y'all are snipping as you go, especially around curves. As you can see, I went ahead to get the point out properly. I had to use my safety pin, but these cups are looking great. What y'all think? Okay. So now we gotta press it out. Always press your garments, y'all. Press as you go. It definitely makes a difference so you can see what you're doing and if it's looking right or wrong so that you can correct it while you're working. As you know, I like to see what I'm working with, and so far it's looking really good on the dress form. I did have to fix this side because it was a little short where the seam was, so I have to close it in just a little more so that it's flush when I do add that bias to the top of the corset. A way you can avoid this is actually putting it on there before closing that side, marking it, and then sewing it up. I have a habit of doing things out of order because I just be working and I don't be wanting to stop to do the right thing. But don't be like me, y'all. Be better than me. And so we're going to close it all the way up. All the layers are in place. Make sure all the seams are all going the same way because you want everything to be as flush as possible. Now it's time to add it to leg corset. And leg corsets needs the casing on the top to have the clean finish. And so we're going to start from the back of the corset and sewing that bias strip forward so that it's clean on the top and not necessarily underneath on the lining part. You want to leave a little extra on the ends so that you have enough room to fold it over to create a clean finish on the ends of the bias. And so y'all see I'm relieving that tension around the curve so that it can move freely. You want to go ahead and fold it over, and then we're going to do a top stitch. I zoomed in on this side so that you can see exactly how I did that point. I started with this side first, and then I folded over the other side, and then did the top stitch. I used the size 18 needle on this because, as y'all know, this horsehair fabric is already stiff. I'm sewing through boning and layers of material, and this needle lasted the entire way. It did not break on me one time. Looking good so far, so we're just gonna go ahead and do that for all the other sides on this corset. And this was the final. I did skip through so that y'all didn't have to waste time watching me do the same thing over and over. And so now we're gonna add in these cups. You can go ahead and place them right at the top because you want it to be flush with that seam at the top of the base of the corset. We're gonna go ahead and start the stitch off, but go ahead and take it out, pin it around, and then start sewing it again. You just want to keep that first stitch was just to keep it in place. I will say this thing was so stiff. It was hard. My blood machine was struggling, but it made it through. But like, y'all take your time with this one because, and make sure y'all have the right size needle because it needs all the help that it can get with doing this curve. I normally sew from my industrial machine, but since I moved, my machine is still in New York, and so I'm thankful for my home machine because it still be working and getting these designs made. But y'all, just be careful with these needles. Just make sure you're using the right size. For my industrial machine users, you should be fine, but still you get the right size needle because them thin needles will pop on you. She's looking really good so far. So we're gonna do it to the other side. And this is what it was looking like before finished off the underwire casing. So now we're gonna start on that underwire casing and do it the same way how we did every other casing. You start on the top and then we're gonna trim it down that seam allowance, and then we're gonna go ahead and fold it over and do a top stitch. So here you can see why I say to leave a little extra on the casing so that you can fold it over and then it's now a clean finish instead of having to like figure it out because you cut it too short. And here we are doing the top stitch. It was so satisfying to see it almost finished. And voila, she is looking phenomenal. It just need an underwire in there. I did not insert it as yet, which is why I did not close off the top of those casings. But once you slip in the underwire, you can go ahead and honestly use your needle and thread and just close in the casings. Do a couple stitches over it so that it's not showing, the underwire is popping out. But thanks for watching. This was so much fun. And I hope that you guys learned something. If there's anything that you want to learn, leave it in the comments. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.